The Dark Man, Episode 4 The Weight of Stone. Are we born to darkness or born to light? The age old question. Humans are born with a loathing for the dark. Our eyes cannot stare into the abyss. But darkness isn't evil. To creatures of the night, it is the light that brings horrors. Just as people who do dark deeds fear most the exposure of the light of day. His name is Frank Loomis. To evil, he is known as the Dark Man. He walks in creeping shadows to drag evil into the light, to punish the wicked, to tear the wretched evil from the soul and drag it to where it belongs, to the gray realm, where old gods still live, where aborted terrors lurk in shadows so dark even the most sensitive eyes of the night creatures can't see. Through their own darkness, the wicked's crimes always come to light. The Outsider, a murderous mind tempered by an iron will. His deeds speak to a disturbed heart of evil. After a year of rumors and false leads, he has finally stepped out of the shadows and revealed himself. Now he stands before Rose. Her mind may fear him, but her warrior's heart will fight him regardless. In the shadow of the great stone of Lagos, as it begins to shake apart, the outsider stokes her wrath. Rose took a step towards her. Sister Harmony, come by me. I'll protect you. Come here and take my hand. I should help, I think, said the outsider. There was a hissing sound like something removed some air from the room. In the blink of an eye, the outsider was standing behind Sister Harmony, having abandoned his perch on the Lago stone. Rose raised her weapon instantly. Jesus, he's fast, she said with surprise. No, you're just all very slow, the outsider said as he placed his left hand on Harmony's shoulder, looking at Rose. Rose threatened, You leave Harmony alone or I'll. There was a flash of metal and a deep red cut appeared in Harmony's neck. Oops, too late, the outsider said with a satisfied smile, taking a few steps backwards with the bloody knife in his hand. Sister Harmony fell to her knees, grasping her throat, trying to speak. No! You slit her throat, you goddamn monster! Rose rushed to Harmony's side, crying out her name. Harmony! Rose tried to stop the bleeding. Harmony! Harmony! Oh, God! Sister Harmony looked up into Rose's eyes in a panic as she coughed and choked. Rose shook her head. No, don't try to talk. Shit! Can't stop the bleeding. Hang on, sister. Oh, no, she's not breathing. She's. Rose looked at Harmony in pain as Harmony's brown eyes lost focus and glassed over. No, 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 Rose said, fighting back tears. The outsider took a few steps and leaned over, feigning concern. It's no use. She's quite dead. Can't you feel her body going limp in your arms? The eternal sleep weighing her corpse down? Rose looked up at the outsider in rage. Oh, I will end you, she said, dropping the lifeless body and rising to her feet. She reached out to grab the outsider, but he nimbly skipped backwards with his hands in his pocket. Come here and I'll tear your head clean off, Rose roared in bloodlust. You might be able to dodge bullets, but I can kill you with my bare hands. She threw strikes one after the other, a straight punch, a jab, a roundhouse kick, all with lethal strength and deadly accuracy, but the outsider just smiled as he flitted around the room with his hands in his pockets like he was dancing. Rose pulled a knife from her belt and swung it at his neck. He momentarily disappeared. She stopped and listened, coiled like a snake. The outsider's voice came from behind her. Could you be any slower? Rose's gun practically flew out of her holster as she fired two shots at the outsider's head. His image flickered and the bullets hit the wall behind him. No, 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 missed me again. Do try harder. I'm practically holding still. He pulled his hands out of his pockets, unfolding his knife again. Let's see how you fight without. He started to say, but there was a low, bassy, buzzing sound. Rose looked around in confusion as the world started to run like wet ink for her. What the hell, she said, and then let out a startled "Ah!" as she fell through the floor and disappeared. The outsider cocked his head to the side like a surprised dog. Oh my, that was unexpected. Frankie just pulled her into the gray realm. I suppose that would be safer than letting her try to fight me, but still, what a dangerous choice. He relaxed and calmly folded his knife and slipped it back into his pocket. He looked at Mother Azra with cold disdain. She stood frozen. And now, do you mean to murder me too? She said in a faint voice. The disdain disappeared like he put on a smiling mask. Oh no, I have plans for you, my apprentice. Such sights I have to show you, things that might make you claw your own eyes out, but only if you are weak. If you can bear the weight, I will show you wonders. In a dimly lit room with gas lamps casting eerie light against the gloom, the dark man stares up at the ceiling of a beautifully constructed library. At least to the outside observer, he appears to be staring at the ceiling. In truth, his eyes peer between realms. Persian carpets, walls of bookshelves made of dark lacquered wood, lights from gas lamps, and antique furniture all around. He focuses his powers, and with a final pull, Rose plummets from the ceiling. Her natural athleticism immediately takes control as she sees the floor beneath, and she lands on her feet, rolling instinctively to negate the impact of her fall. Still consumed by the heat of her battle, she scans the room for the outsider. Where are you? You motherfucking piece of shit! I'll fold you in half! Where am I? Frank stands before her with his hands raised as he tries to calm his companion. You're safe. Calm down, he says in a soothing voice. Frank, you asshole, come here! With her blood still afire, she reaches for Frank, but, like the outsider, he is outside her grasp. Flickering out of sight for less than a heartbeat, only to be standing slightly out of reach with his back to the bookcase. Rose, stow your wrath, he says as Rose immediately closes the gap and fires off a right hook. Frank again moves faster than the eye can follow, and Rose's fist connects with the shelf on the bookcase, splintering it like kindling and causing dusty books to tumble to the ground. Wait, I can explain, Frank says. Asshole! Rose roars and grabs a leather wingback chair and hurls it towards Frank. Again, Frank flickers and appears behind Rose, but this time she anticipates his move and spins around, grabbing Frank by the collar and lifting him up into the air. Frank holds his hands up as Rose pulls back her fist. Rose! Hurting me won't hurt him. Stow your anger! Frank yells. Rose stops, her fist trembling with rage still. She has Frank pinned to a bookshelf with one hand, his feet dangling in the air. The red mist clouding her mind clears enough for her to regain control of herself. Frank, she says with tears of rage in her eyes. Frank reaches forward and softly puts his hand on her fist. Rose, you're safe. You are a heartbeat away from death, but now you're here. Rose looks around in confusion as she drops Frank. He lands on the floor, adjusts the collar of his shirt, and straightens his tie. Where the fuck am I? Somewhere relatively safe, Frank says as he stands. Relatively? Rose asks, looking around the handsome library. Rose, hear me out. We are in the gray realm, he says as he pulls his cane from across the room using his telekinesis. The cane softly floats into his hand and he leans on it, uttering a tiny sigh of relief. Huh? What the fuck? I always imagined it differently. Like, hell, not like a Victorian library? We are deep underground. This place was made a very long time ago. It is a place only a dark man can reach, a place separate from the madness of the gray realm. If the dark man had a home, this would be it. Something about this place. It feels wrong, Rose says, cracking her knuckles half out of nervousness and half out of adrenaline. That's just your natural instinct warning you that the gray realm is dangerous. I will happily explain why such a place exists in this realm, but unfortunately, we have more pressing matters, Frank says, trying to bring Rose back into focus. Rose's eyes narrow and she almost growls the name. The outsider. Exactly. I don't have much time. This fight isn't over. There will be a window in a few minutes where I can pass into the human realm. Until then, I can only wait and watch. Rose still bristled with anger. We don't have time to wait. Come back with me so we can kill that fucker. I have no other choice, Frank explained. The permeability of the barrier between realms gets thicker the more often it is penetrated. I've been bouncing back and forth all day. Too much travel, and the membrane becomes impenetrable. It heals fast, allowing me to move freely again. However, it's impassable for a few more minutes. As soon as I can, I will return to face the outsider, but I need you to stay here where it is safe. Like hell, Rose says as she instinctively reached for her empty holster. Rose, you are not equipped to fight him. No one is. I might not even be able to, but I have skills that will most likely keep me safe for now. Frank said calmly. Tell me what to do to fight him, she said. Frank shook his head. I'm not going to fight him. I'm going to stop him. We can't let the Lago Stone crumble. If it does, all of Istanbul will fall to fire and chaos. I must stop an ocean of blood from being spilled at the hands of the Jinn Kings. That is more important than a Pyrrhic victory. Frank placed his hand on Rose's back and motioned to a mahogany table with an ornate silver mirror on it. Come over here. On this table is a window. It is a way to see into the human realm with even normal eyes. I want you to watch everything that happens. So you're just going to abandon me here? What if you die? Rose asked. If you return, I can't protect both of us. We will both die, Frank stated. Rose brushed his hand aside. You don't know that. Please, Frank pleaded. I'm weary and I don't have much time. Look into the mirror. Rose sighed in frustration. I see us. Touch the surface and speak of what you want to see in the realm above. Fine, Rose said as she reached out to touch the mirror. Show me that dickhead, the outsider, she commanded. There was a soft ringing, and the image in the mirror swirled in response. Not how I would have worded it, but it's your intent that matters, Frank said. The image appeared fuzzily before Rose. There he is. This isn't the best picture. Your television on the Umbra looks better, and you said that was an antique, Rose said in frustration. Give it a moment to focus. It's very old. Listen to their words. Back in the Lago Stone chamber, the outsider smiled as his plan unfolded. Oh, I can feel their minds turning. The Jinn Kings stir, the outsider said, almost giddy. Mother Azra was stunned. I can feel them too. I've stood in this room 1,000 times, but never heard anything like this. Your gifts were too weak to hear it before, but their minds scream now. Ooh, what a wonderful cacophony, the outsider said as he clutched his fists in anticipation. By the stone, they boil with hate. How can you keep us safe from these creatures? Azra said, growing nervous. There was a low rumble, and the entire temple began to vibrate. Mother Azra put her arms out to steady herself. The very earth is shaking, she exclaimed. Another crack appeared in the great Lago stone with a sound like a grenade going off. The outsider beamed and grasped Mother Azra by the shoulders. It won't be long now. The king of the Ifrits is fighting his bonds. Can't you smell his fire? He is the strongest and the first to awake. Can you smell it, apprentice? I only smell death, came a reply from the top of the stone. The outsider spun around with glee. Frankie! Oh, I'm so glad you could finally make it. The dark man stood atop the shaking Lago stone, his eyes stern and his body surging with a power only the outsider could feel. You don't plan on letting these creatures escape, do you? You want something from them. You're not doing this to liberate them. The outsider leaned forward in that condescending way he'd so enjoyed displaying. Oh, how I've missed seeing your dour face. How long has it been since we both stood as brothers in the Golden City? Not long enough, the dark man stated. Another crack shook the stone, but the dark man's stance stayed steady. Come down from that crumbling tower of lies, my friend. I'm so glad you could join us, the outsider said, spreading his arms open wide. I thought I had ended you along with that hypocritical city. How delighted I was to hear that you had escaped the fall of the Golden Realm, even if it meant my efforts to end the lineage of the Dark Men had failed. I'm still overjoyed that you lived. Oh, I have so many questions to ask you. You dare address me as a friend? Oh, we are not friends anymore. You've simply committed too many atrocities to go back to those halcyon days. You've turned your back on everything except your own ambitions. How much destruction can one man cause? Was the destruction of a whole civilization not enough for you? The outsider put his finger on his chin and looked away for a moment as his fake smile wavered, hinting at his true emotions. Mm. He chuckled. There's that unshakable defiance. You should be thanking me. You lived the life I desired, the life I earned. You became the Dark Man. Even with your ineptitude in using the Dark Gift, you still managed to steal the prize. Well, I suppose with the entire city gone, the Zahaka had no choice but to enlist you to his cause. You're lucky the Sahaka only banished you. You did not want to become just another Dark Man. You wanted the Dahaka's throne. You wanted his power. You wanted to become a new Dark God. He saw through you the second you stepped into the Grey Realm to receive your coveted title, the Dark Man said. The outsider's eyes glinted with rage that threatened to spread across his face. He threw me out because he feared me, he said, his voice taking on a new edge. Then why do I hear him in my dreams, demanding I bring you to grovel at his feet? The Dark Man asked. The Lago Stone was beginning to thrum with energy. The outsider bent over and picked up a small piece of the Lagos stone from his feet and stared at it in thought for a moment. He's just jealous. I, a mortal man, will become the new master of time and passages, and there is nothing he or you can do about it. I will pull him from his throne of time and trample him beneath my feet, the outsider said, his voice alight with increasing malice. Is that why you want the Jinn Kings loose? You can't believe you can harness a power like that, said the Dark Man calmly in the face of the outsider's growing anger. Said by someone who thinks the Dark Gift is power enough, the outsider countered. Power enough for me. I'm not petty and greedy like you, the Dark Man said matter of factly. The outsider's eyes narrowed and he stood up straight. Mother Azra felt the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. Her dark gift screamed that the man in front of her was drawing on power so vast that it made her own soul feel small and vulnerable. She remembered what the Dark Man had said about the frustrating and inevitable hierarchy there was as long as there was a disparity between those with dark gift. That disparity was growing terrifyingly clear to her for the first time. It was as if she stood in a room with two dangerous pools of energy charging up, their dark gifts swelling from some vast and bottomless pool that normally stays shrouded. Only now, with their powers growing to levels unbound by restraint, did she feel how small her own abilities were. It was as if she was watching two mountains hurtling towards each other. Her knees were shaking, and it was as if some massive force was pressing down on her. It was all she could do to stay on her feet. Her head spun, and a dizziness overcame her. The tension in this moment of silence between these two wielders of dark power she couldn't fathom was electric and terrifying as their eyes remained locked on each other. Eventually, the Dark Man sighed and relaxed a little. Very well, outsider, he said. You may have your machinations. I don't have time to argue with you any longer. This is just a diversion. The real battle is beneath my feet. As if in answer, a deep, inhuman howl came from inside the Lagos stone. The outsider bristled with anger. And do you think you can do anything about it? I'll give you your Dark Man title. Like Edward the Unworthy, I dub thee Frank Loomis the Weak, Frank Loomis the Unready. Can't you feel the hellfire filling this room? The king of the Ifrits wakes, and his fire is unquenchable. His rage is so great that he'll emerge first. You may have quenched the weakest of his children with the aid of an earthly storm, but earthly tides will never weaken the original God of fire and his kin. So what will you do, Dark Man? Mother Azra finally spoke in a trembling voice. He's correct, Dark Man. I'm sorry I fought against you. You haven't lied once since you arrived at my door. But I followed Philip in a desperate hope to save my son. He used me. Don't die along with me. The outsider turned his anger on Mother Azra. Oh, you won't die, my reluctant apprentice. Soon you will welcome my guidance. With the outsider's spiritual pressure focused on Azra, she let out a soft cry and fell to her knees. She closed her eyes and the world spun. She choked down nausea with everything she had, trying to remain present. Mother Azra strained so she could speak once more, even though she could barely lift her head. Dark Man, please take care of Rose. There is no magic that can stop the Lagos stone from unleashing terrors anymore. The dark man spoke sternly to her. Mother Azra, I keep telling you, there is no such thing as magic. No magic. Only me! The dark man dropped to his knees and placed both palms atop the Logos stone. A hum louder than the stone's own vibration filled the air. The colors of the sandstone obelisk began to run and desaturate. The outsider scoffed. What are you doing? You can't be serious. That stone is the size of a 5-story building. It's too big for you to pull into the gray realm. Even the greatest of dark men wouldn't even dream of trying. You were always a poor student of the gift. Don't embarrass yourself. The dark man grimaced and growled with effort. I am not the same man you knew in the Golden City. I am the Dark Man, and I will stop you. Fool! The outsider yelled, his anger no longer kept at bay. He threw out his hands and tried to grasp the stone with his mind. The sky shook. The world grew dimmer, as if all the light in the city was being pulled to the Dark Man. For a moment, the Dark Man looked up at the Mother Azra and cracked half a smile. Then the Logo stone plummeted down through the floor with the Dark Man riding atop it. Down into the gray realm it plunged. And then, the moment it disappeared, silence fell. The outsider stood looking at the great cavernous space that used to contain the Logos stone with his mouth open in genuine shock. He crossed his arms, and then, with one hand, he nervously put a shaking finger to his lips. For what felt like an eternity to Mother Azra, the outsider was lost in thought. Slowly, the stifling spiritual pressure from the man in front of her abated. She could feel it being pulled back inside the vessel of the outsider. When he finally spoke, it was in an unnervingly quiet voice. Well, that was unexpected, he said. Unfortunate. Most unfortunate. Azra rose to her feet. Her body ached all over, and her legs were still unsteady. She spoke in a wavering voice to the outsider. Maybe the Dark Man wasn't as weak as you thought. Maybe we both misjudged him. Faster than her eyes could follow, the outsider threw out his hand, his eyes glowing with hatred and rage. Azra was hit by a massive force and hurtled backwards. She hit the closest wall so hard it knocked the breath out of her. She remained being crushed at least 10 feet off the ground. The outsider's gaze was beyond any anger she had ever witnessed before, as he walked slowly towards her with his hand outstretched. His lip began to curl and his eye twitched. His words came out in a growl, the falseness of his earlier self gone. Know your place, woman. You are but a fledgling in the world of gifts and curses. You will learn to respect me. You will learn what it means to fear one with true power. This was the true face of the outsider, an embodiment of rage and hatred with immeasurable power to back up whatever his will sought to obtain. He lowered his arm, and Mother Azra fell to the ground like a doll. He stood over her, looking down with those eyes of his softly glowing as he spoke. Come with me. We are leaving. This experiment is over. This round goes to the Dark Man. He lowered his hand, and the rage in his eyes faded. He then extended that very hand to Mother Azra. Mother Azra looked up at the man she had once thought was her friend. She took his hand, fully knowing that this man had no friends. She was not his apprentice. He was her overlord. Watching with disbelief, fear, and amazement, Rose of Stone stood before the viewing mirror in the Grey Mansion. She desperately watched, cursing her inability to effect what she observed. Damn it, where'd Frank go? Rose asked the empty air. He's not here with me. What just happened? Mirror, show me Frank! She reached out and grabbed both sides of the mirror. Damn it, show me the Dark Man now! The mirror made a sound almost like wind chimes, and an image of something churning in the darkness appeared. What's that, an ocean? She asked as she squinted at the image. There was a noise like thunder, and the falling Lago stone flew across the mirror's surface. The stone impacted the dark water, sending massive plumes of spray into the air. Holy shit! Rose exclaimed. He dropped it into the ocean. But that doesn't look like a normal ocean. It must be somewhere in the gray realm. The waters are blacker than a moonless night. Why can I see this? Is there just enough light to barely see what's happening? I guess that's why it's not called the Black Realm. Out there must be a tiny speck of illumination. Somehow you could just see enough to. Oh my God! Shit, Frank! He's going down with the stone! The large surface area of the Lago stone hitting the water's surface tension stopped the stone's descent for a heartbeat. Frank balanced on the unsteady top. There was a low moaning wail, and the stone shattered as it began to sink rapidly beneath the waves. A great outburst of fire began to exit the stone with more speed than it fell. Oh no, that's an Ifrit! It's going to escape! Cried Rose. Frank's voice came through the mirror, small and tinny. Oh no, you don't! He leapt into the air, no longer tethered to the stone with his gifts. With what looked like his bare hands, he reached into the swirling flames and grasped something invisible to Rose. Stop it, Frank! You're crazy! Let go of it! You'll burn! Rose yelled at the mirror as if Frank could hear her. Frank screamed in pain as he grasped the Ifrit with one hand, and with the other reached towards the Lago stone as it slipped beneath the waves. The moment he did, both he and the Ifrit were pulled with great acceleration downwards with the crumbling stone. The creature and Frank both screamed in pain as they were pulled beneath the waves. The surface continued to glow with fire beneath the waves for a second, and then all went dark. God damn it! No! Rose cursed, pounding the table with her fist, causing the mirror to wobble. Luckily, she held back her full strength, or the table would have collapsed. Rose stumbled back into a chair near the mirror. Crestfallen, she sat in shock. Minutes passed. She stared into the mirror as it reflected the silent undulation of barely visible waves. As more time passed, she silently waited for Frank Loomis to rise from the depths. More minutes crept by, and tears began to roll down Rose's face silently. Now that the threat of death and destruction faded, the full weight of the horror she'd battled started to sink in. This can't be happening. He's gone. She sniffled as she fought to hold back the tears. What the hell am I supposed to do? Fucking hell. She rose from the chair and grasped the mirror again. God damn it, mirror. Show me the dark man. I said, show me the dark man. You piece of shit. Show me Mother Ezra. There was a soft ringing, and she was presented only with her desperate reflection. No, it's switched off. Show me the outsider. Show me the Lagos temple. No! Ah! Rose's fear exploded into rage. Blinded by her emotions, Rose picked up the closest chair and threw it across the room. It collided with another shelf of books. As the books fell, so did the tears rolling down her face. She was lost in her fury. With both hands, she grabbed the couch and flipped it over. Screaming with unquenchable rage, she flailed around at the few items near her, throwing a vase and a lamp. She then grabbed another chair and picked it up over her head and smashed it on the floor, causing splinters of wood to fly across the room. Oh, God, she said, almost hyperventilating. God damn it, Frank, I'm trapped here now, you asshole. With her wrath spent, she fell to the floor on her hands and knees, and despite all her willpower, she could not stop the tears from flowing. Her loss felt greater than the ocean that swallowed Frank, and just like the dark man, she fell as if she was drowning. Rose pressed her head to the floor and clenched her fists. What the fuck am I gonna do? She asked the silence around her. Her voice quivered and shook as she began to blame herself. He's going to get away with it. Fucking bastard. I couldn't stop him. I'm sorry, Harmony. I'm sorry. I wasn't strong enough. Oh God, Sister Rachel, my poor sister. He burned you. He defiled you. I'm sorry. I let him get away. Everyone is gone. I couldn't save anyone. I'm useless. Stop crying. Stop crying, Rose. Oh God, Frank is dead now too. My sister's. Oh God, my sister's. Someone. Please, please help me. Oh God, I'm sorry. Rose fell silent except for her sobs. The grief was too much. She moved to a sitting position. She wrapped her arms around her legs and she pressed her face into her knees and quietly cried in the dim room. Grief and guilt and rage rolled down her cheeks. The battle for Istanbul was lost. A procession of dead stone sisters paraded before her mind. Some whose names she knew, others she had only just met. How much loss could one soul endure? No one knows the answers. No one spoke up to forgive or help forget. So for now, she cried softly, feeling more alone than ever before. Eventually, she grew silent. Time passed. With no ticking clock to measure the passing moments while locked in grief, she sat. Eventually, she spoke. No, she said. Get a hold of yourself. She wiped her nose and eyes on the sleeve of her khaki safari shirt. It's not over yet, she said. Stand up, Rose. You're trapped. I'm trapped in this stupid fucking house in the goddamn gray realm. Oh, God. I've got to find a way back. Okay, Rose. Get up. There has to be a way. Ha! I'm talking to myself now. Doesn't matter. I'm alone now. Get up. You're the stone rose. Don't let anything deceive your eyes. Look around and find out about this place you're in. Rose's mind switched to survival. She stood up and began to examine the room she was in. There was some furniture, most of it now broken. She walked over to the couch and tilted it back onto its feet. She looked around at the walls of books. It's going to be fine, Rose, she said, her voice no longer wavering. No more tears. Swallow your heart. Make it like stone. On the far wall, there was a door with a brass handle. Carefully, she walked across the room and opened it to find a staircase leading down. Following it, she started to explore. At the bottom of the stairs was a very long hallway. She squinted, trying to see where it led. She could just make out there was a gradual curve to the hall. There was no way to see to the other end. All along the hallway, there were doors at regular intervals to her left. Let's see, door or hallway? I guess I'll try a door, she said to herself. She opened the first door, and inside she found a room with a writing desk, illuminated by candelabra. The smell of beeswax and formaldehyde filled her nose. What the hell? Looks like a study. But who lit these candles? She asked herself. She walked over and picked up the candelabra, raising it above her head. The desk was covered with papers and books. Some opened and showed strange anatomy sketches in charcoal. She looked around the room. Bizarre objects and instruments of brass and steel sat on the shelves. On another wall, glass jars glinted and danced in the candlelight. She squinted in the gloom and walked closer to the jars, and the flickering light illuminated their contents. I knew I smelled formaldehyde and death, she spoke as she looked at the glass containers one by one. Is that a fetus? Looks like a pig, I think, and this one is. Fuck if I know. A strange gray thing with no legs and too many arms swirled in its jar, opened three eyes and looked at her. Jesus, did that thing just move? She backed up and looked across the shelf at more of the jars, big and small. There was motion in almost all of them. Things with strange forms all seemed to be turning towards her. Rose shook her head. Oh, God. Several of these things. They're alive? Oh, hell no. Just. Nope. Wrong door, Rose. Nope, 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 nope. Rose set the candelabra down on the desk and briskly marched out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Okay, that was a buzz, she said. Let's try another. Hopefully, it's not more of whatever the fuck that was. I think I just discovered a new fear. Squishy things in a jar phobia. Ugh. Fuck that. She proceeded down the dark, wooden walled hallway. Rose continued her conversation with herself. All right, more doors. They all look the same. She tried the next doorknob. It rattled but wouldn't turn. Damn it, it's locked, she said. The next door was discolored. The staining on the dark wood was peeling, and there seemed to be mold growing from the bottom of the door, working its way upwards. That's different, she said. Tarnished doorknob, musty smell. Maybe it leads outside. Rose opened the creaky door. She was immediately greeted by a putrid smell. She looked around in confusion. It was like she was in an alleyway in some old city. The floor was paved with cobblestone, and there was a street lamp providing electric illumination of what appeared to be an old well. She looked up and expected to see the sky, but the ceiling, despite being much higher than the last one, was wooded and cloaked in darkness. What the hell? The air was cold and moist. She cautiously entered the room. The walls looked like the back of old houses, but there were no windows or doors. She approached the well, and the stink grew worse. Oh, God, I've woken up some kind of stale, rotten filth, she said as she held her nose. She walked up and peered down into the well. Its depths appeared to go on forever. As she stared, something seemed to move in the blackness. It was moving up the wall of the well. It stopped at the edge of the streetlight's illumination. Glinting eyes stared back up at her. She could hear ragged breathing echoing up from the well. A long gray arm reached up with unnerving slowness, and the eyes locked with hers. Oh, fuck this room too, Rose said in disgust. I'm not in the mood for whatever the fuck this is. She backed out of the cobblestone room slowly and shut the door firmly. Rose wrinkled her nose. Jesus, now the whole hallway smells. Okie dokie, I think I'm done with doors for now. Let's see where this hallway leads. Oh. Rose proceeded to ignore the rest of the doors as the hallway wound slowly to the left as she walked along it. After a few minutes, she saw a light coming from the end of the hallway. It was different from the gas lamps on the wall, whiter and brighter. After a few minutes, she could see even more light coming around the corner. She slowed her pace, wondering what she might find. As the end of the hallway came into view, she saw what appeared to be an immaculately clean kitchen. She smiled. The kitchen had a white tiled floor with matching tile around the walls above the countertops. The tile stopped a few feet above the granite surfaces, where a pleasant white wallpaper with golden fleur-de-lis in a tight pattern climbed to the wooden ceiling. There was a center island with a cutting board and a gas stove. Well, looky here. What a nice cozy kitchen, Rose said as she smelled the air. And the stink is gone. Smells like pine? Oh, that's much better. No windows, but Frank did say this place is underground. Let's see. Cupboards. Refrigerator? Holy shit, electricity. Fridge is humming. Oh, I see light bulbs are in the ceiling. Ooh, this is nice. Rose slowly took in the room. Taking her time, she opened a cupboard. Harmless canned goods and jars of preserved food greeted her. There was another door beside the sink. Oh my God, water! She exclaimed. She realized she had a great thirst and was happily surprised to find plain water running from the tap. Without bothering to find a glass, she took a long, cool drink straight from the faucet. She looked down at herself. She was still damp and cold from her excursions in the city and sewers. Her hands were filthy. She inquisitively smelled herself. Oh, God, I stink, she said in revulsion. She turned the knob for hot water on the faucet and breathed a sigh of relief as she washed her hands in the steamy water. As she enjoyed the warmth on her hands and arms, she began to talk to herself again. God, I almost forgot how much shit has happened in less than a day. Sewer spelunking, fighting demons, fucking kebabs. Damn, I'm filthy. Thank God I have a strong stomach. I wonder if this place has a nice harmless bath somewhere. Is it fucked up that I'm kind of hungry? Suddenly there was a scraping sound at the door by the sink. Rose froze. The scraping sound continued. She felt naked without her sidearm. Jesus, what the fuck now? From the other side of the door came a soft, pleading mew. Rose reached in her pocket and unfolded a small knife. That better be a fucking cat, she said as she approached the door. Then came another tiny mew, followed by more pawing at the door. Rose gripped the doorknob slowly. Here, kitty kitty, please don't make me stab you. I'll just open the door and you're going to be a completely normal cat. She turned the knob carefully and opened the door a crack. Sitting before Rose was a cat, but much bigger than a typical house cat. It wasn't enormous like a lion, but its spotted coat looked exotic. It was easily 4 times the size of any house cat. It harmlessly yawned and stretched before pushing the kitchen door open further with its big head. It sauntered into the kitchen. Whoa, you're a big kitty, Rose said with her eyes wide. But not too big, I hope. God, you're the size of a Labrador. The dog-sized cat mewed in a tiny kitten-like tone that sharply contrasted its size. It looked up at Rose with huge lantern-like eyes. Aw, don't look at me like that, she said as she tentatively reached out to pet the cat. The cat pressed its head against her hand and rubbed against her leg. She begrudgingly scratched it under the chin. Rose smiled despite herself. Who's a pretty kitty? Please don't try to tear off my face. The cat let out another pitiful mew. It lazily walked over to the fridge and faced it. The cat turned its head and looked at Rose expectantly. It put its paw on the steaming white refrigerator and looked over its shoulder at her. Oh, I get it, Rose said to the cat. You hungry? Let's hope we don't feed on souls or something. Rose opened the fridge, and inside were all the expected contents that one would find in a modern refrigerator. The cat stood on its hind legs and gently pawed at a casserole dish. Rose pulled it off the shelf and gave it a sniff. She removed the lid to discover it was full of whole, uncooked fish. Ah, here we go, Mr. Cat, she said as she put the dish on the floor. The cat began to purr very loudly as it began to eat with gusto. Rose breathed a sigh of relief. Wow, pretty much a completely normal, massive house cat. Why are you so big, huh? What a big boy. Who's a good kitty? Geez, of all the things I've seen today, if it's even still the same day, you are a welcome change of pace. God, I'm exhausted. And I'm starving. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the food in this place is safe. Even the dark man's got to eat. Let's see, she said as she took a closer look at the contents of the refrigerator. She grabbed some items wrapped in wax paper and, to her delight, found them to be thick steaks. She beamed at this discovery. She examined the cupboards all around her, discovering all the seasonings she could desire. Returning to the fridge, she found some butter. Bingo, she said. Now for something to cook with. This cupboard is plates. I can use plates. Good. Now this one must be. Aha! Frying pan. That should do nicely. Fried steak. The cat mewed again upon smelling the beef. Okay, buddy, don't rush me. There's plenty to share. Rose fired up the gas stove and began to cook. Every so often, she handed a piece of fat or butter to the large cat at her feet, staring up at her expectantly. Oh, wait till I'm done, cat. I don't think your owner will mind if I feed you a steak, too. Who is your owner, anyway? Frank? Never thought of him as a cat person, but I could be wrong. Do you just live here? The cat's only response was to place the enormous pad of his paw against her knee and issue another tiny mew. For such a big cat, you make the most pitiful baby noises. Who feeds you when Frank is gone? God, Frank, you better not be dead out there. How does one shop for groceries in the gray realm? Is there a market somewhere? Fuck, I don't even know how big this house is, let alone the gray realm itself. Ah, nice and rare, but piping hot. Here you go, buddy. This one's for you. She dropped one of the uncooked steaks down on the casserole dish with a wet plop and put the cooked one on a plate for herself. She dug into it lustfully. Oh, God, that's good, she said, closing her eyes, enjoying a greasy mouthful. Mmm. God, how long ago were those fucking kebabs? The cat looked up at her again and mewed, having already polished off his steak. No dice, cat. This one is mine. What's your name, anyway? You got a big pair of balls back there, so you're definitely a boy cat. I know. You can be Frankie for now until I find out what happened to your owner. She put the last morsel of steak in her mouth. Oh, that's good. Oh, man, am I bone weary. I could sleep for a week. I feel a lot safer with you around, Frankie. I heard the outsider call him Frankie, too. Guess that's why he gets so annoyed when I do it. Well, he can be Frank and you can be Frankie. I'm sure that won't be confusing at all. I think I'll go back upstairs to that library and get some rest. Exploration can come later. Rose picked up her plate and put it in the sink. A heavy weight of weariness overtook her. She stretched and yawned as she exited the kitchen. The cat followed her back down the hallway and up to the library. She walked over to the viewing mirror again, hoping to see something new. Okay, mirror, let's try this again. Show me the dark man, she said, touching the mirror. She waited a few minutes. Shit, it's still busted. Show me Frank Loomis. Piece of shit. Fuck it, she said, throwing up her hands in frustration. Rose walked over to the antique couch and laid down. Her feet hung over the side, but it was comfortable enough. Rose was used to being too big for things. At 6'3" the world of women always seemed a little too small for her. This thought distracted her as she began to feel the heavy hand of sleep pulling her down, despite her soggy attire. The room was warm. The feeling of sleep coming over her gave her a brief panic as she imagined Frank sinking down into inky depths, battling demons as he drowned. The cat brushed against her hand, helping her relax, and she finally fell asleep. The hours passed as Rose slept deeply. After some time, something took notice of her. A mind, old and vigilant, watched her. She dreamt that Frank was next to her. Wake up, he said in her dreams. She ignored him, lost in abstract thoughts of exhaustion. Wake up! He screamed in her ear. Fuck! Rose cried in surprise as she fell out of the couch onto the Persian rug beneath it. Motherfucker! She yelled as she leapt to her feet with her fists raised, ready for battle. The cat let out a confused mew and leapt up onto the couch. Rose spun around looking for signs of movement. Frank? Was that you? Damn it. Oh, I'm up, I'm up. God, that was a whopper of a nightmare. Hello? Only the cat responded. I wonder if there's some coffee in that kitchen, she mused out loud. It was then a great booming voice shattered the silence.
You don't belong here.
It said, rattling the walls of her mind. Did you hear that, kitty? She asked, looking at the cat.
Why do you seek respite in a land of horrors?
Came the booming monotone voice again. The voice of the message made her temples throb. Who the fuck? Is that voice in my head? Who's there? Where are you? The voice responded.
I am everywhere. I am every when.
Well, that's cryptic as fuck, Rose said, putting her hands on her hips.
It is insolent. This is my home. It is my world. It does not belong.
Rose clapped back. Are we talking about me or the cat? The world shook as a deep rumbling caused a few books to fall off their shelves. Rose put her hands up in front of her. Okay. No need to act threatening. Let's start over. I apologize. I woke up on the wrong side of the floor. My name is Rose of. The voice interrupted.
I know you, Stone Rose. Your existence is like a tiny flicker in an endless void. It would be simple to snuff it out.
Whoa, no need to do any snuffing. Maybe we can be friends, Mr. Mysterious Voice. What do I call you? For a moment, the voice was silent. Rose waited. When it spoke again, the tone was a little softer.
I stood in the void. There was nothing. Then it all began. I stood watching it stretch out before me. I was the first mind. I have watched since the deepest of times. I was the first soul. I was the first god.
The first god? I'm sure I've heard Frank say that before. What'd he call you again?
I am Zahaka. I am god of time, god of the threads of destiny, god of the passage between worlds, and this realm belongs to me.
I get it, said Rose. The Dark Man is your ally, right?
The Dark Man guards the world of man in my stead. He has always been. There has always been a dark soul to serve me. This Dark Man is also insolent, refuses to bow, accept his place. He seeks to be my ally because he is from a godless age. Others would wantonly murder to take his place, to earn my favor, but he serves to my satisfaction for now.
Okay, then. I'm the Dark Man's ally, so that makes us allies, right? Rose said hopefully.
You relinquish your duty? You no longer seek to kill the Dark Man? I see it in your mind. You may visit my realm in peace, but you do not have my protection. Wander into the void, and I will not stop it from devouring you.
I guess that's better than being unwelcome. So, Mr. Zahaka, is Frank alive?
The Dark Man lives until I say he doesn't.
Oh, thank God, Rose said in relief before she could think about what she was saying. Thank you, Mr. God. Where might he be if you don't mind me asking? Mr. Zahaka? Hello? She waited in silence, but the voice did not speak again. After what felt like forever, a large black shape fell from what seemed to be the ceiling, catching Rose off guard. She leapt back before she realized it was a man that now lay on the floor. He was burned and blackened, but gripped a familiar silver handled cane in his shaking hand. "Oh my God, Frank!" Rose cried as she rushed to his side. Frank was soaked, and what remained of his clothes smelt like a wooden stove. He coughed uncontrollably. Fuck! Oh, it's okay, Frank. Slow down, slow down. Frank turned on his side and began to retch and sputter water out of his mouth. God, how much did you inhale? The whole ocean? Just breathe, breathe, breathe. There we go. Rose thumped him on the back to help him purge the water from his lungs. Jesus, you look like shit, Rose said in a worried tone. Thank you. Thank you, Frank said between coughing fits. I saw what you did in that magic mirror, Rose said. I thought you were dead for sure. No such. He tried to say. Yeah, I know, no such thing as magic. Burns, he said in obvious pain. Rose shook her head. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, you're scorched pretty bad. You're pretty fucked up. I need to get you back. Get you to a doctor. I can't even tell if you're wearing clothes. I think your pants may be scorched into your legs. I can't tell what's what here. And the rest of you? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm babbling. I'm sure you're gonna be fine. You just need to zap us out of here so we can get you to a doctor. Frank shook his head and said raggedly, No, doctor. I just need to rest. You're not thinking straight, Rose argued. You'll die if we don't get you to a fucking doctor, and fast. He won't let me die, Frank said, opening his brown eyes finally. Who, Zahaka? Yeah, we had a chat. You spoke to him? Frank said, his eyes growing wide. That's bad. Why is that bad? She asked in confusion. Frank erupted into another coughing fit while shaking his head. Slow down, no need to explain right now. He pulled me from the deep before I was healed. I could have made it back on my own. Leaving me here for God knows how long, Rose said with a hint of anger. The cat mewed and hopped off the couch, trotted up to Frank's side. Bucephalus, Frank said weakly. That's the cat's name? He's an ocelot, Frank said, wincing as the ocelot licked his hand. An ocelot? That explains a few things. Frank coughed and said, Don't, don't worry. Harmless. It's fine. I made friends with him. I call him Frankie. Frank almost seemed to smile. That's not that's not funny. You need to go back. Never meant for you to stay this long. Frank's eyes were wide with pain as he tried to move. Rose said, No, don't sit up. I'm not going anywhere. Frank closed his eyes momentarily, letting the pain overtake him. His teeth gleamed white in contrast to his blackened flesh as he grimaced. Take my hand, he said. I'm right here, buddy, Rose said as she grasped the hand to comfort her friend. The Victorian library began to smear like wet paint. Rose looked around in a panic, realizing immediately what was happening. No, Frank, don't leave! Before Rose could say another word, she was kneeling in the Lagos chamber. All around her were the signs of the battle that had occurred. The smell of death and blood filled the air. She stood up and looked around frantically, but silence was all that remained. Everyone was gone. A great void was all that was left of the mighty Lagos stone. Don't leave me alone, Rose said in a tiny voice. August 14th, 1921. A deep chill hung in the air over the city of Istanbul. Every night fog filled the starless air above the glittering lights of the city. Each morning there was a frost shimmering across all the buildings, and the harbors were full of commotion as the relentless churn of life filled the ancient waters of the Bosphorus. As Rose sat in Mother Azra's office, she could smell the sea air, even in the underground temple. She closed her eyes and tried to picture the first settlement from deep history to lay claim to the vital waterway that connected east to west. Did they live in huts made of mud or stone? Her head hurt as she pinched the bridge of her nose, looking at the telegrams on her desk. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Rose grumbled to herself in frustration. Go away, it's late. Whatever it is, I'll read it in the morning. There was another louder knock on the door. I said go away, Rose snapped. The handle clicked and the creaking door opened. Rose stood up from her desk. Jesus, I said, she began to say. There was a familiar tap of a cane upon the sandstone floor, and Frank Loomis walked through the door. Rose could hardly believe her eyes. Holy shit, Frank! She rushed from her place behind her desk and threw her arms around Frank, lifting him off the floor in a crushing hug. Frank was surprised but smiled nonetheless. Oh, he grunted. I think this is the first time you've ever hugged. He started to say, but Rose dropped him, and before he could speak another word, she slapped him across the cheek. The sound of it was like a whip cracking. Frank stumbled backwards for a second and said, Ow! What was that for? Rose crossed her arms and glared at her friend. For ditching me. Not once, not twice, but 3 fucking times. Well, I don't have much of a. He began to apologize, but was interrupted again as Rose lifted him off the ground with a crushing embrace. Oh, okay, I guess we're hugging again, he wheezed. Rose dropped him again and put her hands on her hips. Where the fuck have you been? It's been over a month. No calls, no letters. Frank smiled and said, They don't have postal service in the gray realm. Rose looked him up and down. Look at you. It's like nothing happened. Not a scratch on you. Wait, did you make a stop at the Umbra before coming here? Well, I couldn't be walking around naked. I healed. My clothes were not as fortunate, Frank explained. You should be scarred from head to toe, Rose said. I'm sorry I couldn't return sooner. It took me much longer to regenerate than I wanted. So you just healed. You can do that? Rose said in disbelief. I can if I'm in the gray realm, Frank explained. Part of the blessing of the gray realm. I just slip into a kind of coma until the worst is past. Eventually I rise and try to rehabilitate. Once I'm ready, I can make the passage again to the human realm. You had me worried sick. Part of me thought that damn cat was going to eat you. You probably smelled like dinner to him, Rose said in a scolding tone. He's a good ocelot. He was like a nursemaid to me. Kept bringing me deformed creatures to try and feed me, said Frank. Oh, God, I could just see it. Him giving you a disturbing 3-headed rabbit, Rose said with amusement. Something like that, replied Frank. Why is there an ocelot in that crazy house anyway? Rose asked. Frank shrugged his shoulders. I honestly have no clue. I've read many journals from many dark men that have been archived in the Gray Mansion. None of my predecessors seem to know where he came from, let alone how he leaves to hunt outside, or how old he is. It's quite the mystery. It's called the Gray Mansion? Frank took a seat in the wingback chair he had interrogated Mother Azra from, and Rose returned to her seat behind her former mentor's desk. Frank continued, It's called a lot of things. I do know who built it, but that can wait for another time. I'm just glad to be back. Well, it's been crazy while you've been playing Rip Van Winkle, she said, gesturing to all the paperwork across her desk. Yes, I've missed quite a bit. This place is bustling with new faces. Fresh paint on the walls and the floors, said Frank. Well, there was no way we can get all that blood out of the bare stone, so I just told him to paint over it, Rose said as she leaned back in her chair. And you, sitting in this office. Should I call you Mother Superior now? Frank asked with a raised eyebrow. Oh, hell no. They keep trying to stick me with the job, but I keep telling them I have more important things to worry about. They finally stopped asking me. They're sending someone to relieve me of the job. They are making the Atlantic Passage as we speak. In a few days, there will be a hearing to sort out this whole mess. The house mothers of the great houses of the order have dropped everything and they are coming here. I'm not looking forward to that, Rose said, pinching the bridge of her nose again. Any leads on the outsider or Mother Azra? Well, I suppose it's just Azra now, asked Frank. Rose's face hardened slightly as a shadow of anger briefly flashed in her eyes. As far as anyone could tell, they just booked it without a trace. There was a rumor of a sighting in Berlin, but it couldn't be substantiated. Frank sighed. Well, at least we're not completely back to square one. Still have the book? You bet your ass I do. Keep it down the back of my shirt, just in case someone tries to shoot me in the back, Rose said, pointing with her thumb over her shoulder. Always so practical, said Frank. Safest place for it, Rose replied. I imagine so, said Frank. There was a soft knock at the door, and a young voice said, Mr. Darkman, sir, I have your coffee. Rose looked confused. Did she just call you sir? Frank looked towards the door in similar confusion. Yes, I can't explain it, can you? Nope, not a clue, Rose stated. The door opened, and a young woman walked through it in the traditional robes of the order, holding a tray with a silver tea set. She was short and had an alabaster complexion with a slight hint of freckles. Her hair was jet black and her eyes were deep green. Frank closed his eyes briefly, smelling the aroma of Turkish coffee. "Oh, thank the four realms," he said. "I haven't had coffee in so long. Nothing but tea in the place I was staying. You can't imagine how much I want a cup or five. How kind of you to bring it without even being asked." "Well, if you want more, just get Mother Rose to call the kitchen," the woman said with a slight nod. Rose looked at the woman with a sad smile. "This is Sister Melody. She's Sister Harmody's older sister." Frank's face immediately filled with the same expression as Rose. "By the first God, I'm so terribly sorry. If it had been within my power, I would have saved your sweet sister and her child. Other than Rose, she was the first of her order to ever speak to me with kindness." Sister Melody's face momentarily showed her sadness. "It wasn't your fault," she said. "Mother Azra opened our doors to monsters." "She did indeed," said the dark man before changing the subject. "My dear, I'm wondering if you can humor a curiosity of mine." "Whatever I can do to help," she said with a slight smile, looking at the floor. "When I first came to this temple, I didn't exactly receive a warm welcome. In fact, a few attempts were made on my life. But now every one of you new girls seem to be rolling out the red carpet. You've all been so nice. I feel bad about listening in on your thoughts, so I haven't. Due to your kindness, it would be quite rude to do so. But if you could please enlighten me, I'd be ever so grateful. Oh, you needn't blush. We're all equals here. Your face reminds me of your sister's." "Well, Mr. Darkman," she began to say. "Just call me Frank." Sister Melody corrected herself. "Mr. Loomis. Mother of Stone Rose told us about the whole ordeal that happened here. You almost gave your life for our order. You tried to save us even when we tried to kill you. You took away the biggest burden of the order and sunk it in a distant land. Until you walked back through the door, we all thought you were a martyr. Mother Rose told us what you looked like, and we all hoped you'd return. And just as she promised, you did." Rose smiled and put up her hands. "I swear to God I didn't put it that way. I just told her the truth, I swear. I didn't tell him to butter you up." Sister Melody explained. "It was our choice. Me and the other sisters. We all saw the bodies, the massacre. We are the ones who gathered the bodies. We are the ones who buried them one by one, said prayers over them one by one. The new house mother may paint you as a villain again when she comes, but every woman in this temple knows the truth. You kept the great Lago stone from spilling its horrors. But more importantly, you will hunt down the man who drenched our sacred home with the blood of our sisters. Then you and Mother Rose will make sure he never does it again." There was anger in her voice, only barely tempered by respect. "Well, I guess I don't mind a little gratitude," Frank said. "I'm sorry you had to do such heavy deeds." "I'm just glad we didn't lose you to the abyss," Sister Melody replied. Rose put her head in her hands. "Oh, no, that's all I need. Your ego is big enough, Mr. I am the Dark Man. Now I suppose you'll be more insufferable than ever." "I will try to keep it from going to my head," Frank said, bemused by the situation. Rose smiled at the young novitiate. "Thank you, Melody. I'll call you if we need something else." Sister Melody nodded curtly. "Yes, Mother, and good morning to you both." She backed out of the door, leaving the coffee tray behind. "God," said Rose, wearily glancing at the clock on the wall, which read 15 past midnight. "Is it that late already? I feel like my head's going to explode. I'm not cut out to be an administrator. All this paperwork gives me the worst headache. I'd rather be dodging bullets any day, or at least be nose deep into something I actually want to read." "So when can we leave for Egypt?" asked Frank playfully. "It's not that simple," Rose replied. "They got me tangled up in all the bureaucracy an ancient secret order can muster. Everything has to be approved, signed in triplicate, and sent via telegram to the other mother houses. The entire order is galvanized with one goal: kill the outsider. No trial, no discussion. The outsider and Mother Azra are to be killed on sight. They won't let me go anywhere until the hearing is over anyway." "When all this started, we thought he was trying to keep the Order of Stone from allying with me in my cause. Apparently, the opposite happened," said Frank. Ha! He wasn't trying to do anything like that. He just kicked over the chessboard and left with all his pieces. All we could do was react, Rose said, obviously annoyed. Caught with our pants down, Frank agreed. Next time we need to be ready, Rose said with grim determination. Are you still mad I pulled you off his chessboard? Frank asked, raising an eyebrow. Rose picked up a letter opener off the desk and twirled it between her fingers in thought. I've had a lot of time to think about that. And? He would have killed me in a heartbeat. We both almost died, she said. And now you know a bit about how dangerous our foe is, Frank said. Rose looked up at the dark man. Did he kill with a thought? I didn't see how he killed most of the sisters in the temple, but I saw 3 of them destroyed instantly like he snapped a finger. The bodies twisted instantly before my eyes. I see them in my dreams some nights. Telekinesis. You've seen me move objects with my mind numerous times. It's a power that, when weaponized, can be used quite brutally, said Frank. Such a fancy word for something so vile, Rose said in disgust. It's just a tool, but even a simple hammer can be a deadly weapon, Frank said, leaning forward to pour a cup of coffee. Do you know how to fight that? Frank nodded. There are ways. Well, whatever those ways are, I need to learn them, she said, clenching her hand into a fist. You've barely become aware of what you're truly capable of. You don't have all the gifts taught in the Golden City, but everyone has their own path. There are ways to fight the dark gift using the stone gift. Over the centuries, some of the greatest warriors of all time wielded the same gift as you. I need to be ready, Rose said with grim determination. And the blame partially lies on my shoulders. I wasn't sure of you at first. Despite knowing me since you were a child, you started our travels conflicted. But now I feel confident that you've decided not to assassinate me in my sleep or some other foolishness. You'd have to become a bigger menace than the outsider for me to even contemplate such madness now, Rose said, leaning back in her chair again. Good. There are ways to draw out your natural gifts that were used in the Golden City. You truly have the gift of stone, the stone magic Mother Azra wielded. That is why I brought you to the Stone Sisters in the first place as a young girl. That, and you dragged my daddy to the Grey Realm, she said seriously. Oh, so you know, Frank said rather sheepishly. So Mother Azra wasn't lying, Rose said. About that, no. Do you remember having a sister? Vaguely, Rose said, furrowing her brow. Your father visited on her every imaginable abuse, from the simple to the unspeakable. What happened to her? Rose asked. She killed herself, Frank said solemnly. Fuck, Rose replied. I barely remember her. When I came across you and your father, he was trying to sell you on the side of the road. I had been through one of the greatest trials of my life in the weeks before this. I had no patience to draw out his sins and weigh his soul. I entered his mind brutally and without subtlety. I quickly saw more than enough, and his fate was sealed. I tossed him unceremoniously into the Grey Realm without any consideration as to where he landed. But afterwards, I was left with the decision. What to do about his little girl, Rose said, her face taut with conflict. I couldn't just leave you on the side of that road. A quick scan of your mind revealed that you had been relatively lucky compared to your sister. Other than the occasional back of his hand, you were relatively unscathed. I brought you with me, not quite knowing what I would do with you. A few days later, I watched you, a tiny 10-year-old, lift a 50-pound bag of horse feed. I used my gifts to gently take a closer look at your soul. Once I realized you had the gift of stone, your fate became clear. There was a moment of silence between the two. Are you okay? Asked Frank. Rose still averted her gaze as she fidgeted with the letter opener. I don't know my own birthday. Yes, it was careless of me that I did not extract that from your father, Frank said softly. You kept an eye on me. Every year on the anniversary of me joining the sisters, someone left a present on my bed. It infuriated the other sisters, both old and young. I knew it was you. They would take your present and try to confiscate it, but it was pointless. Even when they threw it in the garbage, it returned to my bed. And I've kept up that tradition. Sometimes I'm early or late with your gift. You can imagine why. She looked up at Frank, her eyes stern. Why bother? You remind me of the sister I was separated from long ago. That, and I felt responsible. I took you from your father. He was a monster, but I bear the blame for making you an orphan. Rose closed her eyes and sighed. That's good enough for tonight. I'm exhausted. Frank looked at Rose as she could see that he was full of genuine concern. I'm not angry, Frank, Rose said softly. You made the right call back then. I'm more worried about the outsider. That is something we can prepare for, Frank said. It took Mother Azra decades to hone her stone skills. I can't wait that long, Rose said sternly. Frank reached into his pocket. Here, I have something for you. He produced a brown glass bottle with an eyedropper for a lid and placed it on the desk. What's this? Rose said, taking the bottle. It's something they used in the Golden City. Some kind of liquid with a dropper? What's in this? Magic eye drops? Everything in the Golden City was based on the substance mined from the surrounding mountains. Golden glass, a kind of volcanic glass only found in that realm. We've come across it twice in our travels. You mean that stuff the mad doctor made those undead children with? Rose said, looking at the bottle wearily. Yes, golden glass can be used for many things. It can be used as a building material, an energy source, and in this case, a tincture. Purified and concentrated, it can be ingested. However, you must take care. Overuse can have unpredictable outcomes. Put one drop in a cup of tea every 3 days. No more. Golden glass addiction is a real thing when you're talking about the concentrated extract. Not to mention, it can cause madness, but I doubt you'll succumb to such malaises, Frank said. Did you have to take a tincture to get your gifts? Asked Rose. Frank continued to explain. The dark gift is something you're born with. Not every dark minded soul makes it to the Golden City. Most live their lives without ever awakening the gift. Others master it with no instruction. Upon reaching the Golden City, a soothsayer can tell the nature of your gifts. Rose held the bottle up to the light. It must be confusing to call everything golden or dark. Isn't there a normal person between dark and light? People without gifts are welcome in the Golden City, but it was an archaic society. Classism could be stifling. My friend, Dr. Humes, for example, he was a talented surgeon, so he was allowed to study in the great library of Axiom. But having no special gifts, he was limited to all but the highest floors of the library, where the books on the greatest mysteries were kept. But a man could spend several lifetimes trying to read even the most common materials. And what about you? Frank's expression changed subtly. The dark minded are immediately placed in the slave class and made to mine golden glass in the aptly named mines of madness. Rose was taken aback. Whoa, wait, you were a slave? Yes, the dark minded are feared. There was a stigma associated with those who had the potential. Working to the mines, we were exposed to raw golden glass along with the rest of the slave class, the dregs of society, criminals and debtors mixed in along with the innocent. Most go insane after a time. For some, it takes days, others, a lifetime. But for the very few, it awakens the dark gift. That only happens once every few hundred years. Then what? Asked Rose. You're allowed to live in the lower city and you receive training, Frank replied. Rose pointed to the letter opener at Frank. So you and the outsider? Our gifts awoke on the same day. The dark gift always awakens in pairs. Somewhere out there, someone with the gift awakened at the same time as Ezra. I'm sure we'll come across them sooner or later. The ones with the gift are sent to train with a retired dark man, said Frank. Retired? What? That can happen? A rare thing. Dark men operate in a past era, as I've explained before. If you survive long enough to catch up with the day of your birth, you get the honor of retirement. The retired dark man receives eternal youth from the Zahaka, and then is allowed to return to the Golden Realm to teach others. Most dark men are killed in the line of duty, or die in agony as they lose the Grey Realm's blessing. How do you lose that? Asked Rose. Simple. Piss off the Zahaka so badly that he curses you. I have a tumultuous relationship with the first god, but I know better than to actively fight him on the important stuff. Rose opened the bottle and smelled, wrinkling her nose. So who drinks this stuff? Smells like cloves. Anyone wanting to help awake dormant gifts. It can't give you any gift that you don't already possess, but it can help accelerate the maturity of what you already have. Everyone has latent gifts. It helps those become apparent. Of course, not everyone was given this substance. Mostly it was reserved for those with the capacity to use the golden gift. Ah, so there are people who have other gifts. I get it. It's a complicated relationship, the balance of power. Those who are golden minded start taking the tincture and training and developing their skills. Every so often, someone with no preternatural gifts is allowed to imbibe the sacred elixir. I remember the case of a painter who was allowed the sacred elixir. It allowed him to transmute the golden glass into his work. The pictures he made would move and even sometimes sing. What is the golden gift anyway? Rose asked. It manifests as a multitude of skills. Some are healers, some are masters of agriculture, and others are more combat oriented. Rose looked baffled. Agriculture? They can stimulate plants to get them to grow almost instantly. Others can renew otherwise infertile soil. It's more important than one would think, Frank said matter of factly. So if I take it, what will happen? She asked. Frank smiled. The gift of stone is strong in you, stronger than any other I've ever come across myself. We can discover the extent of your gifts together. So, did the outsider give Mother Azra this same tincture? I doubt it. You still have that book she showed us? It's in a safe place, Rose said without taking her eyes off the bottle. That would be one way to awaken the dark gift. Well, even if he has access to a supply of golden glass, he lacks the teachings and equipment to refine it. Sometimes the dark gift can awaken on its own without any intervention from the Golden City. Once that happens, it's only a matter of learning. And where'd you get this bottle? Asked Rose. There's a supply in the Grey Mansion. A small supply, but it should be sufficient, Frank replied. 1 drop every 3 days, Rose said, looking up at Frank. No more, Frank said sternly. And if I take more, what would hypothetically happen? Rose asked carefully. You could die, go mad, or be stuck with a crippling craving for the elixir until the end of your days. On rare occasions, it may cause a boost in your abilities temporarily before the negative effects take hold, but the trade off is rarely worth the risk. Rose was intrigued. So, a touch of poison every few days will make me stronger. I'm not exactly thrilled about taking strange substances. Is it possible that exposure will hurt me even if I do as you say? There's always the possibility. I read of a few cases where someone turned out to be basically allergic. The results were not pretty. This whole idea seems dodgy to me, Rose said. Frank shrugged. Ultimately, it's your choice. I do not insist that you take the elixir. You can develop your skills at your own pace if you choose. I will not think less of you or treat you differently if that is what you choose. Rose looked Frank in the eyes. Pour me a cup of coffee, she said firmly. You might want to think about this for a while. Don't be in a rush, Frank cautioned. One way or another, this will change your life. The path you walk will forever be altered. I said, pour me a damn cup. I want to see the look on that smug bastard's face when I finally land a punch, shattering his jaws, Rose said with zest. Very well, Frank said. He stood up and poured Rose a cup of coffee. Rose stood up as well, placing a drop of elixir into the hot black liquid. Here's mud in your eye, she said as she drowned the cup. Is it supposed to taste like cloves? It may seem like that, but there are no cloves in it. It's something that I've always wondered about as well, Frank said, putting down the coffee pot. How long till it starts working? Rose asked. Days, weeks, months. We'll know sooner or later, Frank said. That left a funny taste in my mouth, Rose said with a grimace. Frank raised his finger. A word to the wise. If you ever find yourself craving that taste in the same way you crave a cup of coffee, talk to me, and we can adjust your dosage to prevent addiction. I'm an adult. It's my choice. It's my body, Rose said, thumping her chest with her fist. Frank smiled. Truer words were never spoken. Now I'm going to go find a dark room and try to get some sleep, Rose said, rubbing her eyes. Very well, then. I'll head back to the Umbra and do the same, Frank said. Rose yawned. Okay, I'll see you in the morning. She walked over to the large wooden door and opened it. Sweet dreams, Frank said. Ha! Yeah, that's not fucking likely, she said. So fuck off and just say goodnight, Rose. Good night, Rose, Frank said with a smile. Asshole, she said affectionately as she walked out the door. Frank Loomis exited the study and casually walked down the stone passageway, freshly painted white. He quietly hummed to himself a song that won't be written for over half a century. His mind turned to the mundane, and that made him smile. At least until they reached Egypt, there was very little to weigh on his mind. He wondered if somewhere in the citadel there was a kitchen. His belly felt deplorably empty. When he returned to the Umbra, he found the pantries bare, aside from some back shelf cans of vegetables. Their haste that had brought them to Istanbul prevented them from resupplying the cupboards. The trail left for them might be cold as the north wind by the time they made it to Egypt, but still, the trail remained. And even if there is nothing to be gleaned by taking the Book of Blood to the land of the Pharaohs, the journey must still be attempted. But the urge to rush could wait. Out of the temple, he walked down the cobbled streets towards the great bazaar of Istanbul, which is bustling with trade and delicious scents all hours of the night and day. The nightly fog he strolled through in this metropolis of antiquity made him smile. He still felt the tides of darkness teasing at his mind, the scum and villainy that occupy any place where people gather. But that night he let them dissipate like smoke on the crisp autumn sea breeze. Just as he finally got close enough to smell the exotic foods and spices of the Orient, something darker than your average riffraff tugged at his mind. He sighed because it was something that could not be ignored, no matter what kind of mood he was in. The dark man sighed and said, "The work waits for no one." Atop the bazaar lit by the floating world of the lights below, a young man stood with a revolver pointed at a man begging for mercy. "Please, son, it doesn't have to end this way," begged Inspector Badir. "You will admit what you've done, here and now, before Allah and all the people below. You must shout it from the rooftop for all to hear. Do it or die," replied the anguish-strained voice of his son, Saeed. "Good morning to the both of you," the dark man said calmly, standing behind Saeed. The young man spun around and pointed the revolver at the dark man. "Stay back, stranger," warned Saeed, "unless you want this man to tumble down into the market below." "Oh, no need to point that gun at me. I'm here to help," Frank said, standing with both hands on his silver-handled cane. "Who are you?" asked Saeed. "I'm just passing through, although it is my job to evaluate the wicked," Frank said, raising an eyebrow, looking at Inspector Badir. "Wicked? I am only seeking justice. You have no idea what this man has done." The dark man peered into the panicked mind of Inspector Badir briefly and said, "At first glance, I'd say, murder, rape, incest, infanticide, domestic violence, emotional violence, and with just a sprinkle of corruption. Does that about cover it for this man's sins?" Saheed looked at the dark man in disbelief. "How can you know these things?" The dark man shrugged slightly. "It's my job. I know things, and I hurt bad people." Inspector Badir turned his pleading to the dark man. "Please, mister, my son has gone mad. He means to kill me." "Yes, I can see that," said the dark man calmly. "Come any closer and I'll shoot," warned Saeed again. "Oh, I've not come here to stop you. It would be hypocritical of me to interfere with such deserving revenge. Shoot him if you like. You have my blessing. Many people say that revenge solves nothing. Others say it leaves you empty. But I do enjoy a bit of revenge. Sometimes it can be quite cathartic." "Who are you?" Saeed asked. "I am the Dark Man. I walk in the shadows." Frank began to say, but stopped. "Oh, it's not important, I guess. I'm too hungry to conjure up an intimidating monologue. Needless to say, I will be the judge of what is evil on this rooftop tonight." "And if I do murder this man?" asked Saeed. "Yes, that would taint your soul a bit," the dark man said, "but not enough to warrant my intervention and wrath. Contrary to popular opinion, I believe that, based on context, there is absolutely such a thing as justifiable homicide, and your father is truly a wicked man. This whole city needs to learn of the foul things he's done. I want him to shout it across the rooftops for the whole bazaar to hear," Saeed said, turning the revolver back on his father. Inspector Badir was weeping. "Please, I only did what I must do. You cannot forget your own sins. Lying to your father, shaming our family, and worst of all, you lay with another man and did foul acts of sodomy." "Ha! The dark man laughed. These are no sins. He could feel the hate in Inspector Badir's reply. They violate our most sacred laws. Frank waved his hand dismissively. Your laws are archaic and pedantic. Inspector Badir rose to his feet. If my sin must be exposed, so will yours, my son. I'll cry it out along with my own, and we shall let the people of Istanbul be the judge. The dark man addressed Saeed. I'm leaning more and more towards murdering him before he can hurt you anymore. However, I would hate for those below to capture you and hurt you in any way more than you've already been hurt. I don't care anymore, Saeed said, his voice trembling with tears of rage. My sister committed suicide tonight. The love of my life is dead. My mother is scarred from the ordeal, inside and out. My life means nothing. I want my father to experience the true shame before he is sent to hell. Or you could let me take him to a realm worse than hell, said the dark man with a little more menace in his voice. Sahid looked confused. What? The dark man sighed and closed his eyes, again drawing upon his dark power. Maybe I'll try introducing myself again with a little more fanfare. I am Frank Loomis. I am known to evil as the Dark Man. I drag evil into the light, expose the irredeemable to a dark and hungry God. I drag them down to the gray realm where they will experience torture for all time. Deathless as everything around them, they are violated and consumed. Look into my eyes and you will see that I am not some delusional madman. Look into my eyes and know the truth. The dark man's eyes began to grow softly. What? Your eyes, what are you? The young man asked in confusion. I just told you. I did not exaggerate or lie. I can drag this man to where he belongs. If you shoot him, he will just eventually reincarnate. His soul is quite twisted. Who knows what form his evil will take if he is given another chance at life? His soul is too damaged to be allowed another second chance. I wish I didn't have to do this. This is my father. But I will, even though this burden is almost more than I can bear, Saeed said. You are indeed brave. But let me take this cup from your hands. I will disappear with him from this rooftop, and you will know that justice will be served. Not in this place with those who know not of true terror, but sunken in a deeper realm of chaos, the dark man said. Saeed still didn't quite believe. You speak in riddles. Maybe you are a wicked man or a demon, here to torment the both of us. The dark man shrugged again. Well, if you'd rather just shoot the man, I won't stop you, as I've said before. Saeed's lip curled in hatred. I want to see him when he dies. I want to know he's gone. How can I be free of grief while he still lives? I can't promise you solace. You'll have to find that on your own, said the dark man. If this hell you speak of exists, can you bring me there to see him die? The dark man spoke in an even lower tone. What you'll see is worse than death. Just witnessing such a thing may drive you insane. Your soul is mostly uncorrupted. I would prefer for it to stay that way. I take no joy in hurting the innocent, he warned. What good is innocence? Why should I keep my hands clean if it means that a monster will always haunt me? I do not know you, dark man, so I cannot trust his fate to you alone, Saeed said, straightening his posture while keeping the revolver trained on his simpering father. It's highly irregular, mused the dark man. The Grey Realm is a dangerous land, not a place for tourists. I simply want to see his fate, even if it means I'm stranded in hell with him, Saeed said with determination. The dark man shrugged for a third time. All right, be it upon your own head. Should you wish to visit hell, I can arrange that, but you will be forever scarred. My life is already hell, Saeed said, grasping his heart through his shirt in anguish. Very well, said the dark man, but I don't plan on leaving you there. You must stay by my side regardless of what happens down there. Do as I say, no matter what I command. Only then can I raise you back from the realm of perdition. And whatever you do, don't run. Inspector Badir looked from his son to the dark man in disbelief. Madness! You, Mr. Darkman, speaking lies, and now you, my son, are infected by these lies. I won't be intimidated by flights of fancy. In the blink of an eye, the dark man was standing behind the inspector. A shining blade was impaling his shoulder. Inspector Badir looked at the blade protruding from his flesh in disbelief. His hands wavered over the tip of the sword, unsure of what to do. His shock gave way to pain as he shrieked in grief. First, I mark him with a wound, said the dark man as he removed his sword and sheathed it in his walking cane. You stabbed me, said Inspector Badir. The dark man reached out his hand. Come here, Sahid. Take my hand. Will this hurt? Asked Sahid. Not for you, replied the dark man. Now come. I would tell you not to be afraid, but it's fear that might save your soul, provided you have the fortitude. Sahid Badir, tentatively and with much trepidation, walked forward and took the hand of Frank Loomis. For the trio, the world began to run like wet ink, and in the blink of an eye, the rooftop was empty. What horrors lurk in the gray realm to tear and torture the wicked? Only the dark man knows. It was a crisp, cold dawn on the Golden Horn. Muezzins were calling out across Istanbul from their minarets for morning prayer. Frank Loomis blew on his fingers as he shivered after a cold water shave. The Umbra in its hulking glory was covered by a thin morning frost. It was unseasonably cold on this particular morning. The boilers and other pieces of machinery that are normally the beating heart of this home on the water were silent and cold. Frank rubbed his hands together as his breath hung in the air. I can't wait till Rose returns. She somehow has a knack for keeping the old girl warm all through the night and into the morning. The morning stillness was shattered by the sounds of boots trampling on the deck above. Frank rubbed his sleepy eyes. God damn it. It's too early for this shit. Can't I have one morning to myself? A light foot descended the stairs into the lower decks of the Umbra. This was followed by a light knock on the door to Frank's cabin. Frank picked up his walking cane. You may enter, Sister Melody. The door opened slowly. I'm sorry for the intrusion, Mr. Loomis, said Sister Melody, her emerald eyes full of apologetic sheepishness. Oh, you're not intruding at all, Frank said softly. Your sisters with minds prepared for violence are another matter. I begged them to let me try and talk to you first. I don't want any more bloodshed, she said, the worry written across her face, plain as the sun on this cold morning. Do they have Rose? Frank asked, and then shook his head. Never mind, I know they do. Sister Melody produced a medieval-looking set of iron restraints from behind her back. They want you to wear these, she said, avoiding eye contact. Very well, said Frank, stepping forward with his arms outstretched. Sister Melody attached the shackles to his wrists. For your sake, I will act civilized for now. However, I have one request, said Frank. Sister Melody took a step back. I'll do what I can, she said. See that thick book on my bed? Frank asked, motioning with his head towards a book bound in green. Yes, she replied. If things go sideways, I'm gifting that book to you. Hopefully it won't come to that. I mean to give it to the whole Order of Stone as a gift. I don't know what to say. Darkman leaned forward a little and whispered, It'll look better if you lead me out. Right, of course, she said, retrieving the book and then motioning to Frank from behind. Up on deck, 4 women stood in the shining armor of knights. The plate was intricately decorated with sigils and runes. The armor shone like mirrors in the morning sun. The head paladin spoke. Sisters, present arms! The paladins shouted, Hurrah! As they drew their swords and raised their shield. Frank smiled. My, don't you ladies look fancy? The head paladin shouted to the dark man, Frank Loomis, known as the Dark Man, you are under arrest for heresy and murder. He rolled his eyes. Oh, for fuck's sake. Just when I thought we were finally getting along. The Cabal of Stone demands your submission to a trial, said the head paladin. The Cabal is here. Wow. This must be serious then. If you do not submit and follow us, then Rose of Stone will be tried in your place and burned at the stake for heresy, stated the head paladin. The dark man narrowed his eyes. Well, that's not going to happen, and whomever harms a single blonde hair on her head will beg for death after I'm done with them. His warning was grim, and for a moment the paladins glanced at each other, betraying their uneasiness. With the Dark Man in chains and Rose imprisoned, what kind of trial awaits them? What is this cabal of stone? It looks like this saga in Istanbul, this order of stone and fire, isn't over for our heroes yet. Find out what happens in the next episode of The Dark Man.